Thank you very much for the introduction. Appreciate it. Thank you for having us. This is certainly very interesting. I would say this is my first time speaking in front of a high school, or at least it's been a long time ago. But it's great to be out here. So thank you very much for taking time and coming out and hearing our pitch, why the information technology sector and why the data center. So before we get started, and we talk about the value of the sector in itself, I'll tell you a little bit about my history. We'll go through the panelists and have them share their history as well. I was born and bred and raised in Stratford-upon-Avon in the United Kingdom. I was supposed to be a professional athlete. I got picked up by the under-19 English team, paid for the under-19 English team, and that's actually cricket for those that want to Google it afterwards. It is a sport, and it's actually a very well-renowned sport outside of America. Anyhow, at the age of 19, I had the golden ticket. I was going to play for the English team, but the week before I was starting my camp, I suffered a major accident. Used to play polo, fell off the horse playing polo. My L1 through L3 had to be infused, and my left leg had to be rebuilt. So this is roughly about 80% titanium leg. That changed a lot of things in my life, from being an athlete to having that golden ticket in your hand to a career that I was so much into. I mean, that was my life, to trying to figure out what am I going to do next. Now, there was actually another curveball in this whole equation, and that was that the doctors told me that I could actually never get back on my feet. I could never walk again. So I stayed in bed for 9 months, which helped me accelerate through my education. So by the time I was 19 and a half, I was actually done with my bachelor's. Ended up with a double major in mathematics and a minor in statistics. Still don't know what am I going to do. So when I got back on my feet, I ran away from home. And I came to San Francisco because, you know, Hollywood tells you a story, these skyscrapers and Baywatch, and, you know, it's a phenomenal life. And of course, you don't want to be in the drowsy weather of the United Kingdom where it's like flipping 35 degrees and cold and wet and really depressing. So coming out to America was a blast. But then I still didn't know what I want to do. So the closest thing to me was sports. Well, it was American football or it was baseball. I couldn't play. I didn't know the basics. Nor could I actually really divulge myself into learning any of that because it wasn't really very patriotic, I guess, being English or born English. So then I'm like, okay, you know, I've got a little bit of an extrovert personality. I probably might become an agent. Guys, remember the movie Help Me Help You? Jerry Maguire? Well, gosh, you need to know the basics of the game. You need to know the basics of sport, which I wasn't really putting a lot of time and effort into it. Ended up in Silicon Valley. Actually, as a matter of fact, lived in Foster City and ended up meeting a couple of folks in Berkeley, having a cup of coffee. And they were, at that time, addressing security within the data infrastructure space. And I had zero idea. I didn't even know what the internet was, much less getting into security and designing ERP systems and MRP systems and just a computing platform. Well, they brought me on board from a UX perspective. That's the user experience, the user interface, like how would people react to when data is presented to them. And that's when my career took off. And at that point in time, it really became more of an education on the job. So I started learning languages, C++, Python, Java, CNET, and others. And that took a shape of itself. Well, then later on in my career, my mom actually ended up having brain tumor. And she lived in the UK, so I had to go back and forth, and that required me to change my life again. I ended up working on a project in the underground, which is the London transportation system, and designing their data center. Not knowing anything about the data center. So being on the software side of the house, all what I thought was, oh yeah, it's automatically going to happen. It's somewhere out there. I didn't even know what a server was. I mean, it was like all pre-configured, or someone else was doing it. And then come to find out that you got to have network, power, cooling, a physical building, and there's a security element to it. And that just opened up my mind. Oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity in this industry. And then I started designing building data centers. And here we are. So, currently I'm the CEO for Nomad Futurist Foundation, which is a nonprofit we started about a year and a half ago, with the whole mission of demystifying technology for the younger generation. creating awareness and showcasing you guys that there is actually an opportunity besides mom being a doctor or a scientist. This is the fastest, yet the youngest industry. This is the only sector globally that's growing at 30x multiplier today. And that's not even breaking ice. And this is just the beginning of time. I mean, there's so many opportunities that are going to come along with it that we don't even know. And we want to make sure that we encourage you guys, or at least give you an opportunity to explore this further. The challenge that we have, and we have a problem in our sector, and it's a massive, massive problem. We were the best kept hidden secret that we never share with the world. Okay? Everything that you do, any and all of these experiences, they're all connected, and the backbone of all of that is actually data. So this video streaming that you're going to see, the last phone call that you made, the last text that you sent, or the last TikTok that you were on, there's data in all of that experience. Okay? And that all goes back in the data center. And that's just the beginning. Our challenge has been, and what continues to be, and that's the reason why I started this whole initiative, is that today, 40% of the workforce in our sector has got 25 years of experience. Now, what does that mean? In the next 5 years, you do the math, there's going to be a retirement party every day. So we need to backflush talent, and that's you guys. The other challenge with that is that we're going compound at 30% year over year over year over year, right? So there isn't enough people that are going to be able to backflush where the sector is today on a go-forward basis. So we are trying to create this opportunity and exposure for you guys and potentially provide you an educational platform that synchronizes with what you're learning in school today and gives you an opportunity to get into this space. Now, one of the other things that we've been addressing, and you probably guys might have watched a bunch of Google movies. There was an internship movie as well with Will Ferrell, was it? Right? That he didn't have a college degree. We are actually big advocates that you don't need to have a degree from an Ivy League. Like, look at all these big names, like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, these guys actually did not finish college, so there's still an opportunity. And I'm a big believer in the old trade school. So data center, data infrastructure sector is actually still very, very open, as long as you're willing to learn, right? Education does not mean that you've got a degree. That's the end of it. Education, it's a daily occurrence. It's a daily experience. You're learning every day, every second. So that was my initial spill. Let's make some quick introductions. Beth, do you mind telling us what you do and who are you with?
I'd be happy to. Thanks for having us. Quick question. I don't want to put you on the spot. What are we talking about money-wise?
Oh, we will get into that. I mean, there's a lot of money.
I work in data center. What am I going to make?
Oh, so starting point, I mean, without zero experience, I think you can easily start, like, depending on the markets that you're in, between $80,000 to $100,000, roughly. And I mean, there's software engineers, that, like, with a couple of years of internship, probably make about $250,000, $260,000 easily here in the Valley.
And then what if I am in our industry? Let's say I'm in quote-unquote data center and I'm working for Oracle, and I need to buy Oracle space and power so that Oracle, let's use a different one, Apple. I work for Apple and I need to buy data centers so that I can house all my iCloud photos. What does that person make? I go to work for Apple.
The person that's buying space.
I'm buying space from a data center company.
So you're building a data center?
Yeah, I'm building
a
data
okay.
center.
So from a facilities perspective, it really depends on your experience, the organization, and your location. It could be, maybe $140,000, $150,000 as a starting point. Again, I mean, if you've got, if you're a broker, or if you've got a real estate license, or just a general know-how, if you've been in that space, that would be a base typically to start with. But then again, it varies. I'm not speaking on behalf of Apple or anybody else. It's just the general market dynamics.
One more question, then I'll introduce.
I thought I was going to question you guys.
What is the pay pathway, do you think, in our industry?
As far as accelerators are concerned?
Yeah, as far as if I came out and made 80 out of college,
Yeah, so
do you see?
basically, the more interest you show in the industry and the more that you can prove that you are the right individual, you've got the skill set, the ability to learn, and the ability to grow, you can make a lot of money. I mean, there is no particular accelerator that I've seen. I mean, the market-wise, you can say that it's probably like a, maybe a 1.5, 2.5% increase, typical on a yearly basis. But then again, it can be based on the consumer price index or other factors. But I'll tell you guys that there is nothing stopping you other than you. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to put in the hard work, and you're willing to find that mentor, you're willing to make that change and be that change agent, you can work as much as you want to.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So it's time for you to introduce
Absolutely,
yourself.
I'm Beth. I'm born and raised. I was born at El Camino Hospital in Mountain View. I went to Santa Rita. My folks moved us closer to Pinewood Upper Campus, so I went to Nixon, then to Pinewood. We moved to Minnesota and came back. My kids went through Gunn. One is at Foothill. Our oldest is at Foothill, her second year. Our middle child, Blake, is at San Jose State. He likes astro-aero engineering, which I think is fascinating. And our youngest, Samantha, is a senior. We are huge proponents of junior college, and they have a TAG, Transfer Automated Guarantee Program, or TAP, where you work a little harder. So 3, 4, and above, you can get into Santa Barbara, Davis guaranteed. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and above, you can get into UCLA or Cal. So as we look at education and opportunity, I really like an opportunity for everybody to get into great schools. Our son will tell our youngest daughter, who's looking at schools right now, this is application season, stop worrying about University of Michigan, stop worrying about what everybody's talking to you about, look at what you can get into. And then what I really want you to do is look at what you want to do when you get out and which school has the best ranking, if you will, to get into something you're interested in. For example, his is astro-aero. 80% of the folks in his engineering class will be working at Lockheed Martin, music to his ears. So his advice is, and again, he's math and science and engineering, et cetera. His advice to our younger daughter is look at what you want to do, even have a vague idea. Where does that school exit you? Does it get you into a medical program that you like? Does it get you into a field like this? Growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wasn't a great student. Day before the UCs were to be due, I Federal Expressed my application in, and I got into Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, and I forget what else. So I went to Santa Barbara because they had a beach. I studied pre-med. I worked on cadavers, dissected them, went and got them from UC San Diego, brought them back. Got out of school, had no help, no guidance, no confidence, was a horrible test taker. SAT, I think I got a 940 the first time I took it. Had some tutoring and got a 1340. On the MCAT, I don't even know what my score was. My dad at the time was working for what's called a telephone company. It would become an internet company. I went to work there. We were bought by another large internet company. And I think because of the bio background and neuro, I was just interested in what we're calling the internet, which is just interconnected networks. So my T-Mobile can call your AT&T, and there's no problem doing it. When you're seeing a TikTok here and you want to send it to somebody, again, there's no problem. For my pitch to you, all of the stuff we do lives in the cloud. You'll hear that all the time. The cloud lives in a data center. My food, we go to Costco all the time. My food comes from Costco. It lives in that warehouse, if you will, until it comes into my house, into my refrigerator. TikTok texts, posts, et cetera, live in the cloud, which lives in a data center. It's just a big giant building that looks like a Costco building. And so what we're saying here today is we work in an industry that has these big data centers that look like a Costco building, and these wires in the ground or wires, telephone pole wires or satellites, et cetera, that move those photos, those posts, those texts around. And it's what's called resilience. Resilient meaning it always does well because no matter what we're doing, it has to run on what's called infrastructure. It has to run over wires. It has to run in and out of the data center. So when COVID hit, Zoom stock went through the roof because everybody was using Zoom to do classes, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great industry. The last thing I'll say, you can ask me any questions. You can have my LinkedIn. I know that seems super old and grown up, but you can have it. You've got my pledge. I'll help you with anything, whether it's in our industry or not. I live here, and I'm happy to help with anything. You can contact me. I can help introduce you to people. I love doing it. So thank you. I'm Beth.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. Next up is Marcus. So he's got some affiliation with the school. So Marcus, do you mind making a quick introduction?
Yes, so I'm Marcus McMillin. Right now I work for the San Francisco Giants, which I'm sure you guys will be familiar with. My connection to the school is my daughter and son both went here. My son graduated 2021, and I was one of the band dads, so I drove the instrument van around for 2 seasons.
Aww,
And
good
so that was pretty fun. So got to go to a lot of the shows and represent you guys. My wife and my brother-in-law also went to school here and graduated, also way before that. My daughter went through the STEM program here, but she's an art major, but she's in computer art, and so she went from here to Mission. She did 2 years of Mission, and then she transferred to UC Santa Cruz, where she graduated last year in their computer gaming art design, something like that, engineering program. So now she's looking for a job in that industry where she's either making some kind of animated feature or a video game, because she's like really big into manga and all that stuff. And so for me now, the data center side, what I do right now is I'm a network admin, network engineer for the Giants, and I travel between all the different facilities. So there's a facility in Oracle Park, which everybody just sees. I think it's baseball games. If you're familiar with Blackpink, not so much as Deadco, but we just had a Blackpink concert in August, and the stuff that I have to do more is the production side. So you're working with connecting the production people so that they could broadcast now this concert, globally, and basically sell it online, as well as they're just producing their content and making sure they can get on the stage and they can do all the other stuff, as well as setting up all of the Wi-Fi for the fans and the concessions, so that there wasn't a lot of alcohol sales during Blackpink, but there was a lot of just general sales. And so you're making sure that fans could go and buy all these things. And since Oracle's cashless payment system, which is using Oracle, you have to basically, Oracle's database, you have to make sure that the point of sale system is all connected, but it has to be private connection, because now you're dealing with credit card information, which is has to be secure. So that's always fun. And then on top of that, during the regular baseball season, I was doing a lot of high frame rate camera work. So as baseball and all sports kind of evolve into more of an analytical space instead of less people just watching and writing down stats, which still happens, a lot of it is getting into high frame rate camera systems, which require massive servers. A lot of data is traversing. One minor league game is about compressed 28 gigs of data, and that has to be pushed to the cloud daily. And we are running, on an average, 7 games a day, 6 days a week. So all of that has to be pushed, and it's not all from Oracle, it's from the different facilities. So we have Arizona, we have Sacramento, we have San Jose, Dominican Republic has 2 facilities. We have a whole academy there. So it's basically all of that, tracking all the data. So you basically a lot of travel. I did do a lot of self-taught, so I don't have a college degree. A lot of what I learned is on the field, in the field. My start was when Oracle Park was being built. I was working across the street in China Basin, and I was working at a startup company that was doing cellular sales, and I was the network admin, working with the hosting systems that were down at AboveNet, which was the old data center backbone for the Bay Area, and basically did that for a year, and then my daughter was born. I didn't want to commute, so I came back here to Mountain View, and yeah. So my heavy experience is telecom design, so infrastructure in terms of if you're calling someplace, say you're calling a company, say you were calling TikTok for support, and you're like, oh, my account shut down. Well, that has to go through a person most of the time, or it would go through a web feed. And my background historically was designing the call center and the features that you could either do a web chat, an email, or a phone call to that company to get support or help in some fashion. And so generating the agent interaction and then the reporting on the back end. So what most people don't understand in the analytical space is almost every company wants a report of some fashion on what their users are doing, what their devices are doing, and all of that is all basically generated data, and all that has to be stored somewhere, and then you got to figure out how long, so that goes into data centers as well. You're like, well, if I can only have enough server space to store data for a year, I have to offload it somewhere. Well, where does that offload go? It goes to a data center, and you have to basically build all the infrastructure for that. Yeah, it just gets crazy, and you see a lot of the kids that are coming in now that want to be scouts, and they're learning how to process data, analytical data, using Wi-Fi networks, cellular networks, and then sending all of this information back to the major league team, to the coaches, and then the players that they want to review. And again, because they're reviewing data, they want to be able to review it anywhere. So if I'm a player, say I'm Brandon Crawford and I'm in a game at Arizona, but I want to watch a game that I just played in Milwaukee, I need to figure out, well, how am I going to watch that game? I want to see when I was pitched, four balls in the third inning. Well, I have to go back to, they have set up computers, and then they basically host these games for them on the cloud, and they have specific reference points so that if I'm Brandon, I log in as Brandon, and I can click a reference point, and I can see exactly that time and space that I wanted to review. So like all that has to be done manually by people making references, but again, that's all stored in the cloud, whether it's GCP or AWS, which is Amazon, or our own, or Box or whatever. So again, that's a lot of networks, and it's very busy. So if you ever think that you're just going to be working like a network job, and really if you're in any industry and you think it's going to be just like sit down and kick back, it's usually not. You're usually in for quite a ride, a lot of hours, but you get to learn a lot, and if you work for the right place and the right people, you get to do a lot of things. And I've been fortunate enough to always work with people that are able to make friends and connections, and so we've been able to like learn from other people. So like currently, I'm doing the networking side, but my senior engineer has a huge construction background, and so like I said, we're in the Dominican building new facility and new infrastructure, and so I'm leveraging all of that, learning like I didn't know what a water table was, and so in the Dominican, everywhere there's a water table. So if you parents drive now to 101 and they're going past Oakland Road and there's that spot where there's all that water on the freeway, well, that's because the freeway is lower than the water table. What that causes is damage to the infrastructure. And so like on a network side, if you had a network running through their copper or fiber, over time it would become damaged and eroded by weather, wear and tear. And so the Dominican, we had that problem, so we actually had to rebuild everything. And that took somebody that knew construction. So you have to know construction on top of knowing the data side, what to run, what size of cables to feed, how big the pipes have to be, and then you're building new data centers on site and then internationally, and then trying to connect that location internationally over the pond, basically, to the Gulf, to Miami, back to San Francisco, and you're watching all these things, and then on top of Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah, while you work for the Giants, right? I mean, it's not cool. I wish I was that smart to start and go work for the Giants early on in my career. But the point really is that there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, we are the only sector that's got sub-verticals within it. So you've got construction management, real estate, legal, sales, marketing. I mean, you just name it, right? It's all a part of our industry. Next, Zenith, do you mind making a quick introduction and telling what you do?
Of course. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out. So my background is in civil engineering. I grew up in India, wanted to be an architect, but I really enjoyed mathematics and physics. I know it's a little nerdy, but that's what I decided, that I wanted to go the engineering route. So I applied for civil engineering, and I started off my careers building out power plants in India. For 3.5 years I did that, and it took so long, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be 5 years before this power plant completes. And I decided to get a master's degree. I moved to the US in 2014. I went to Purdue for construction management. What Beth's son's advice was, I kind of followed that. Purdue had a great construction management school, and I was like, yep, that's where I'm going. And after Purdue, I got hired by a company that's based out of the Bay Area, DPR Construction. So I moved to the Bay Area in 2016. I did a lot of commercial offices, data centers, life science buildings, and lo and behold, we had a pandemic. And I think that was the light bulb moment for me, that nobody was going back to work. You needed critical infrastructure to be able to support the economy, to be able to support the healthcare services, to be able to support everything else that our day-to-day life needed, right? Where's the next shipment of toilet papers? Stuff like that. So that's how I made that decision. I'm going to pivot my career and focus into data centers. And so that's how I've been here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Maricel.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Maricel, and I've been in the technology construction design industry for over 18 years. I was also a minority owner for a technology consulting firm for 17 years, and currently now I work for an electrical communications, utility, distribution, supply chain solutions company. And so my journey, I'm going to take you way back, actually. So when I immigrated here from the Philippines in 1983, and that date is significant because when I was researching, it's actually when they developed the communications protocol, TCP/IP, and that was the birth of the internet. Obviously, it was around way before that, but that's when they established the communications protocol. And so I grew up in the 90s. And so and that's actually when Google, Amazon, eBay, these websites and firms that you know now, that you use daily, was actually just beginning. And the fast internet connection that you're used to now was painfully slow for me when I was using the internet. In fact, I had to use a dial-up, a phone line. God forbid someone would want to use the phone. You would get disconnected from the internet. And also when you would go to a website, it was extremely painful. You would see bits and pieces of an image loading on that website. So that was my experience growing up. Actually, I was in high school in the 90s and graduated in the late 90s. And so in the early 2000s, that was when I graduated, and that was, unfortunately, the dot-com bubble burst. And so I ended up I did a lot of research and ended up working for a reconnect firm. I was a technician. And we would work with companies that were disconnecting their systems and relocating at the new site, and there was a lot of logistics planning. And the aha moment for me was I worked for a large company. I worked really hard, landed a new client. It was local here. Actually, the logo of this company was a fruit logo. And in the early 2000s, they launched a media platform where you can download music and movies. And I was like, this is really cool. And so then I had the opportunity to tour their data center. So that was my first introduction of a data center. And so this data center manager took me into this facility. And it was rows and rows of cabinets. And in this cabinet, there was, stacks of servers. And the servers, you would see all these blinky lights. And the data center manager was turning me around, and I was trying to hurry up in my heels and catch up to him while he was showing me all these servers. And he said, Maricel, he said, you see all these blinky lights? I said, yes. And he said, okay, so that blinky light is someone downloading a music or a video. And I saw a sea of blinky lights in this facility. And so he said, okay, and he looked me right in the eye, and he said, okay, Maricel, he said, don't screw up this retrofit project, because your job and my job's on the line if this data center goes down, because there's gonna be a lot of upset people if they can't download their music. I said, we won't let you down, sir. And that was my aha moment. This data center industry, this is something I should focus on. So that's my introduction.
Well, thank you. We're going to get to a lot of these aha moments. Are you guys all on like 5G now? Right? Hopefully? Or 4G? Something like that. Anybody remembers dial-up? No? You guys not actually ever checked a dial-up video? So this is what Maricel was referring to, if I can get this to work. This is how we used to connect to the internet. You guys got it easy. You guys got it on your fingertips. We could actually, we're going to skip that. Okay. All right, so we're going to make it a little bit more interactive. So feel free to ask questions. It's about you guys, not about us. But a couple of things. In 60 seconds, I mean, world changes very quickly. Okay? Just look at these numbers over here. 3.47 million snaps in 60 seconds. That's amazing, isn't it? Okay? Let's look at 694,000 YouTube videos are uploaded, 2.4 million Google searches are done in 60 seconds, 241 emails are sent out every 60 seconds. And this is just the beginning. Okay? The world is going to change, as we know. As there's more and more collaboration platforms, the old way of sending out emails is going to change into more of a collaboration environment like the likes of Microsoft Teams and others. Slack, for instance, is actually a great example. People are working and thinking multi-dimension. Okay? Like you guys are a great example. You can be on a social platform while you're working and listening to music. Well, you've got 3+ data points that you just experienced, right? Imagine the byways, the freeways of moving that traffic around globally and the amount of data that's stored. So you mentioned 28 gigs, right? Roughly about a game. Okay. That's like on a little tiny thumb drive that you can put on. As a matter of fact, those thumb drives are now even at 128 gigs as a regular standard form factor. Well, I remember my first VIC-64 Commodore computer with a dial-up connection at 14.4K, and that was state of the art. It took just to have like squiggles of my name going up and down the screen to program that was an art. And you guys, you've got so much of an opportunity. I mean, coding has changed. It's at your fingertips. You can run platforms. It doesn't really matter. My 16-year-old is a self-taught Java programmer because he was playing Roblox and other games. That's actually resulted in him teaching himself. And then you just see these kids working on multiple screens and multiple sessions at the same time. So the opportunities are there for you guys. We want to, at the end of the day, expose this industry to you and the endless opportunities there are. So with that, I'm going to have this now turn into a little bit more of an open forum. So feel free to ask us any question that you might have. All right, we've got a couple of them over here. Oh, that's easy. But a very good question. A database is a repository of data that's actually at the application layer or the software layer. So I'll give you a simple example, like if you guys use Microsoft Excel or Apple Numbers or other basic Excel data mining application, that will result into a database. A data center is where all the compute happens. So that's where we mine and move the traffic, right? Plus, we keep all the data and we process all the data. So that's kind of like a telco hotel. That's like a data hotel. So we can move and mine data close to the user so that you guys can process that over the network versus doing it on a local area device.
One of the biggest examples right now of a database, you could even say GPT-4 or the internet. And where does that live? In a data center. So anything we're talking about lives in a data center. So the internet lives in a data center. Cloud lives in a data center. GPT-4 lives in a data center. So it's you can call it application, but it's software versus hardware. So the data center it's the Costco, and GPT-4 is the
Kleenex or toilet paper.
Yes, exactly.
Hi, thank you for being here today. So as the industry develops, you're going to get more usage of data, and of course that takes physical infrastructure to back that up. Like you said, the huge Costcos. And data centers are huge. I think the average is like 100,000 square feet. And moving forward, we have a finite amount of land, so sustainability is a big issue. how do we maintain data resilience and grow data resilience while downsizing data centers and making it smaller and more efficient?
So I can just take that from the baseball aspect is as computing gets better and faster and requires less physical hardware, the size of the data center and basically computing overall shrinks. As you can see, like, you know, you basically have anything that we had as kids, the cell phone easily surpasses the processing of anything that we've had. So as the technology moves forward, the size and basically storage capabilities expand but shrink at the same time, whereas the physical space shrinks, but the usable space actually expands. So really the data centers shouldn't really be growing too much and taking too much more physical space as, you know, you guys move forward and are thinking about, you know, more of these aspects where you're more concerned about the environment. And as each generation moves forward and is thinking about how they're gonna basically like lay their imprint down and make things better, if you were to go and see, for example, when I started my technical career and you see these old, at the time, chip manufacturing servers, and each one would require, I mean, you could probably fit one, like only 2 of them to process 2 stations would fit on the stage, right? And that was only running at like 128 kilobits of memory space. So, you know, now I could get a phone and I could do that easily. I mean, it surpassed it. So as you're moving forward, as each generation moves forward, they try to make the infrastructure smaller because they know that they can't sustain all the power or all of the facility strength to maintain those facilities. So it kind of grows. It grows, but it lessens at the same time. So is that
Quick question, and I want to throw to you, ladies. I can make green concrete, so I can make the building itself better, not even greenwashing, but I can make that physically better. But what data centers really sell is power, and so power is your real concern. Where the grid is effed, what are we going to do for power? Is it going to be small cell nuclear, et cetera? If it's okay, I want to pass to people who have electrical degrees. And how are we going to do this? How am I going to power data centers with an effed grid?
That's a great question, and I think that's the multi-million, billion-dollar question everywhere. It decides where the data center goes, pretty much. Right now, one of the biggest challenges is how many people know how power plants work? Raise a show of
There's one.
hands. There's
I do
one?
not. I
Okay.
don't, and I work in
Okay.
the industry, so thank you.
So power plants, and because my career started there, I was amazed that they work 24/7 and they work continuously for at least 10 to 12 years. There is no stop. There's no break. You're producing energy and you're transmitting it. So what that means is the transmission is going on, whether you use it or not. Think of water lines that are going. So if you're filling up your buckets or you're filling up your shower, you know, it's getting used. And if it's not, there is like this downtime where your power is lost. So one of the big changes that's happening now is batteries. With the advent of batteries, the way we have stored and utilized energy has created a very great new opportunity. I was listening to CEQA, California Energy Commission's reports, and they recently authorized a big battery station for the state of California where you could, you know, generate electricity through photovoltaic cells, basically your solar panels, store that energy, and be able to use it when you have peak demands. So there's so much technological advancement that supports this industry. It truly blows your mind. And, you know, and there's a lot of debate on what's green and what's not green, and I don't think we have enough time for that. But yes, there are so many things. I see a question there. Sorry?
Sent a ransomware. What if you get sent a ransomware?
Oh, good.
A ransomware.
That's a really good question.
What if you?
I'll give it to these
Hello?
security experts here.
What if you get a ransomware?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who wants to take the ransomware
But what's that
question?
going to look like? Tell me what that looks like. Does it come to your text? Does it come to your email? Like to you, like to the person who asked the question, what does that look like? Right. But like, how does it, for everybody here, how would I even know what a ransomware is? What would it look like?
It just gets all your information.
Agreed. But I get it.
So let's just make an assumption that it's through a text message or through an email.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a, who wants to talk security?
So ransomware and viruses are basically, they're kind of similar, but they're not really. Ransomware is the lockout of your databases. So what sometimes happens with the ransomware, it's usually through social engineering, meaning somebody sends an email, text message, and they try to act as somebody that's inside, somebody that you know. And so like what typically we would see it as an email. Somebody sends an email and tries to act like the CEO or CFO of a company. Just for I'll give a real world example that really happened in the Bay Area. Somebody was working in finance. They got an email that they thought was legitimate from the CEO. They knew that, and the bad actor had initiated this contact, maintained the contact for several months, and tried to build a relationship. Built a relationship, and they were able to see on social platform that the CEO of the company had went on a travel, like a trip. They figured it might have been a business trip, and so they used that kind of information as a little bit of a leverage point, sent an email and said, hey, I'm on this business trip. I need you to wire me like $48 million, something like that, to this account because we're trying to show a good faith instance. This really happened, actually, by the way. So the person wires the money, and then all of a sudden they feel that, oh, this seems out of the norm, and they try to shut it down. But by then it's too late, right? So that's really what happens. And then on a ransomware, what happens? Oh, I think they're going to.
Hey, so before you guys go, we're going to be arranging data center tours. And if you guys are interested, we're actually doing it for MVLA. We've got about 47 kids coming out. So if you guys are interested, reach out to the staff members over here and we'll sign you up. Everyone have a great time.
Have a great day, guys.